Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Holly Malcolm. I'm the Global Membership and Marketing Manager for ISPCAN. And welcome to today's ISPCAN Circle of Learning, presented by Lillian, who is with SOS Children's Village in Uganda. Lillian, I'll let you take over. She's going to do a presentation, and then hopefully we'll have time for some question and answers afterwards. But Lillian, I'll let you do a more formal introduction of yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. This is Lillian. I hope you can see me. Lillian Pablo Nsengova. I'm the Deputy National Director and also the National Program Development Advisor for SOS Uganda. I'm so delighted to be on this call this morning. This afternoon, evening, and thank you all for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I'm happy to be with you. Thank you so much, Holly, for inviting me to be part of the International Society on Child Abuse and Neglect. I'm so delighted to be here. So, Holly, do I start now? Can I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Okay, let me just put it. Can you see my screen? So
it's perfect.
Excellent. This presentation is about the impact of COVID-19 on the children living in alternative care, a case of SOS Uganda. So briefly about the presentation, we'll have a brief on Uganda, the continuum of care, our work as SOS, what we focus on, the methodology for doing this work, the paper that I'm sharing, and also to talk about children and COVID-19, and also how we're adapting to the situation. So briefly about Uganda, it's within Africa, those who are joining in, and that's where it's located in the east of Africa. And we have a population of roughly estimated to be 43.6 million Ugandans. And we're known to be the second country with the youngest population in the world. And we also have a fast population growth. If you look at it, it's 3.3. And of late, we know that we are the third fastest growing country with the population in Africa. If you look at our population pyramid, like for most of the countries, you notice that over 50% of our population, or half of the population we have, are children. And of those, 48% are within the 15 years and below. And as you look still at our country, 6% of the households with the children in the country, 6% of the children in the households in the country are living below the poverty line. That means they cannot afford a meal a day. They are really desperate in their situation. And still, we know that 65% of them are experiencing total destitution, which is key for us within Uganda. But also at the same time, you find that most of them are living different lifestyles, but also dependent, both in the rural and also the urban areas. And right now, looking at COVID and the situation we are having right now, we are having a baby boom because it's related to COVID, but it could also be related to other factors, but around COVID-19. As of now, we have 93,400 cases of teenage pregnancy or marriages within the country. And this is related to the COVID and the lockdown, especially where people were considered to be idle. And this is by the report of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development through the helpline that we have. And the recent launch report done by the UNFPA in Uganda. Just looking at the continuum of care in Uganda, what we have and where we are working. We're basically looking at the family-based care, which includes the family taking care of their children. Then we have the kinship care, we have And then we have fostering and guardianship. Basically, that's family-based care. And then we also have supported independent living, which is basically within the community. And we are looking at it as what does it have for us in terms of the children, especially if they're independent living. And also residential care, and this mainly refers to the approved children's homes like SOS where I work, but also at the same time, we have those that are having adoptions within Uganda as well as outside the country, or inter-country as we call it. Now, when you look at the continuum of care, as mentioned above, as shared, one of the key things you have to note, we have the permanent. The permanent is the family where you belong, and I believe the participants on this call may be belonging to families, but there are those that don't have biological or non-parents, where they are now into alternative care. Alternative care is temporary, and we know this is the care that is provided to a child by a caregiver who is not to be their biological parent. And I just wanted to let you know that now in the country of Uganda, we have 153 registered children's homes. Those are approved and they have to get certificate from the Ministry of Gender and Labor and Social Development so that they can operate to give hope to other children. And now briefly about SOS and our work. Our work in the world started in 1949 by Hermann Miner, way in Innsbruck, and that's in Austria after the Second World War. And right now we are looking at the SOS is operating in 136 countries. And in Uganda in particular, we were registered to start our work operations in 1991. And if you look closely, I'll just show you briefly where we are and where we operate. We have 4 villages. Those are the children's homes that we have, but we also work in the communities. We started with Kakiri, which is in central Uganda. Those who can take a tour to Uganda, please visit us. Please visit us. And then we have Gulu location, we have Entebbe, and we have Fort Portal. The history behind these facilities is it was either as a result the impact of the wars that we had in the country, but also the HIV scourge in the country around 1986 onwards, which left many young children and the parents in their need. So SOS came into support. Right now, we are officially working in 9 districts within the country. That's Gulu in the north of Uganda, and Omoro in the north of Uganda, Kabarore in the west of Uganda, southwest. We have Amuru, which is still in the north. We have Kamwenge, Bitoma, Wachiso, Mayuge, and Rukunjiri. However, our work is known to be around the whole country because of the advocacy we do around children. And of late, since 1991 to date, we've supported over 200,000 children and youth directly and indirectly. Yeah, now our focus as SOS, as earlier mentioned, we support children who have lost parental care. That means these children have no biological parents, non-biological parents. And currently within our care, we have 637 across the 4 locations that I mentioned earlier, and 70% of these are children. That shows we are relevant and to the cause, but it's just a drop in the ice because of the situation of the children that we have. And we also support children at the risk of losing parental care through our family strengthening program, which is family-based, because through that program, when we empower the family, then the child is empowered and can be supported to annex their full potential. And within that still, we have children who are in alternative care, who are 70%, and that's basically kinship care. These are being looked after by relatives, by a grandparent mainly. And I must say that majority of the children under kinship are being looked after by a grandparent, by a grandmother in short. And it's very important to note that because grandparents have played a big role in doing this. And directly right now, as we talk, 2021, we have directly for 14,872 children and youth that we are supporting from 2,742 families. And indirectly, we have reached over 400,000 community members within the country, as I earlier mentioned. Now, going into the study of what we did, the presentation, one of the key things when we're looking at the impacts of COVID in children, we had to do both qualitative and quantitative analysis or data collection to really find out what is happening to the children in alternative care. And one of the key things that we did through our qualitative data collection methodology, we looked at the reports from the caregivers. These are people who are looking after these children that are supporting them. The other one, we did a lot of observations within the homes, but also within the community to see what changes are happening because of COVID. As you all know, Uganda, like any other country, was hit by COVID, but we've had issues. We've had issues around it, and we've now learned to live with it. We know it has impact, negative as well as positive. And we've done a lot of photography, as you see in my presentation, as part of collecting evidence to show the impact of COVID as case studies. And then over time, within the 2 years, we did what I would call mini surveys, just to get, are you okay? Is the child fine? What is changing? What do we need to change now? And we did a sample size across all the locations. Like most of the research is showing, it's not any different within SOS children's villages. Not only Uganda, but also the other countries that SOS is working in. From our findings, we found out that actually COVID has impacted on the children socially. I'll get into the details, the social details, how they relate, whom they relate to, how they're bonding with the caregivers, but also how they network. The other one is the mental and emotional impact on the child. We know the excitement, the anxiety, but also having the mental strength, where we are talking about now emotional intelligence within the children. And physically, of course, for the 2 years, there have been physical changes within these children. Some have grown, some have changed because of age, some have become adolescents, some have become adults, but they are still children to us. The other area that we looked at was the environment. What is happening around them? Are they having enough food? Do they relate to the environment? How are they relating within their homes? When COVID came in, different things happened. People didn't want to share. People did, you created your own space around you. And then the other thing, of course, which is key for us is the economics. All of us know that because of economics, because of COVID, most of people lost jobs. People started looking for what to do, and the end result, the children suffered. Children became neglected, others became abused, others even ran onto the streets. As I earlier mentioned, within some of the reports we are receiving in the communities, some have become street children. So we need to look at that further. And later on, as we analyzed our data, we did the immediate, the intermediate, and the prolonged impact of COVID, both the positives and the negatives. At the top of the presentation, you note the positive. Oops. All of us, when we started, immediately when COVID started, for us in Uganda, one of the key things in 2020, there's a lot of excitement among the children. We're not going to school, we are going to stay home, there's more food, more play, more. Everybody became excited. They were going to stay home. Other children within the locations, across the 4 locations and within the communities that we work, there's a lot of joy. People were jubilating. Yes, finally. Little did they know the impact that it's going to have on them. Some few children were shocked. Others, they became so scared that they didn't want to mix. And at the same time, we had a few of them start doing self-analysis. What is going to happen? Do I live? Will I live today? Will I live tomorrow? And that was key for us as we interact, as we engage these children, as we support these children under our care. When we went on about 6 months to 1 year, what happened? One of the things that we noted, there's a lot of quality time between, which we call bonding, family bonding, but also quality time from the caregivers with the children. They spent time together. They understood what they were doing together. They learned the timetable together, unlike when they were in school. So as we considered it as time for bonding, quality time, more time given by the parent because we're in lockdown, but then we ended up also appreciating the parent knew what the child was doing throughout the day. The other thing that happened in terms of family bonding, much as they were not the ones in our care, they are not biological, most of them are not biologically related. There is a relation, that's what we're calling it family-like. You find that our children started relating. What are you doing? Asking the questions, what are you doing? Where are you going? Because of the fear of death that was coming with it. And then there was also social network that came with it in terms of people appreciating the social fiber, getting new friends among the children within the families, but also within the communities. We saw that happening. The other one that was key for us was character development, discovery of these children of the different ages, and through the caregivers, they was able to see character identification and building. And we took emphasis on that because we really wanted to see how this child was developing within the 2 years. Yes, they've been doing this, but because of COVID, we really wanted to understand. And it was important for the caregiver to note the happy moments and the sad moments among the children. And then we had a lot of learning among the children, trying new things, you know, opening doors. Those who were between 0 to 3, you could see a lot of, you know, practical things, touching here, playing a lot more, using the materials, natural materials that we have within the communities. But there was also skilling, as you'll see later. People were able to use their hands because they couldn't have services from outside their own homes. So people started to do their own skilling within the homes, baking, making clothes, mending shoes, doing farming, as you'll see later. And the negative side of it, the children now started slowly recognizing the missing of the routines, the school. Why am I playing? Why isn't my teacher here? And that started impacting on their mental strength. And then the dependence is trying to start the why question. Mommy, why are we here? Daddy, what are we doing differently? And how can we do things differently? And then right now we are talking about the prolonged impact of COVID. And one of the things that we see positive ones is the virtual formation of social networks. By right now, people are connecting virtually. You can make a relationship virtually. It is positive, but also negative, as we'll see later. And then digitalization, like what we are doing here. It was not only for the children, but also we are connecting globally, and that's what we are seeing. And to us, we don't take that for granted. And even more so, the children were able to connect virtually with different people, learn how to use computer. And there's been, within SOS, we had to strategically try to ask people to invest in ICT for the children. And believe me or not, we tried it out using the computers themselves, but also the phones and other social media to ensure that the children are up to date with the modern trends. And then there's been a lot of self-reliance. That's what we've discovered across all the children that we support within alternative care. Some of the children, I'll say 30% of the children under our care have become independent in their thinking, in the way they work. And those are between the ages of 15 to 17 years. Now, looking at the negatives, right now, because of the prolonged impact of COVID, one of the things that we've realized is stress. Children are not in schools. Right now, the schools in Uganda are closed. They don't know when they're going back. The parents are also tired. So there's kind of anxiety that is also setting up. So there's a lot of stress that is leading to mental disorders, also leading to mental health cases. There's a lot of fatigue, tiredness, idleness that is creeping in, that could lead to abuse between child and child, but also caregiver and child, which is mainly psychological and which we're trying to deal with. And then the loss of freedom. You are home as a child, in Uganda, we said 24/10 or 24/7 with your parents. And yet those days when the schools are open, you find that people have more freedom. You can go out, you can share because of COVID and like the impact. You find that because of the lockdown, people were limited with movement. Even within homes, people were quarantined. So you could not even see your parent. You could not see your sister when they're sick. So this also impacted on the children that we support within our locations. The other one, which is key and which is impacting on the children, was the breakdown of the socio-economic networks. People have lost jobs, and as a country, it is, as SOS, it's impacting on the caregivers to provide quality care and security to the children. Yeah, that's a picture showing you the bonding between siblings within the village, and that smile always brings us hope. And we always share it with people so that we get people to appreciate where we're coming from. Now, if we're looking at adapting to the situation, which is key for us, because the impact enables you to adapt to the situation. We are living with COVID and we are learning to live with COVID. But one of the things that we've learned is always as SOS to adhere to the government standard operating procedures, like any parts of the world. Many countries are doing that. The other one is to do a lot of risk assessment to see where are we going and how can we improve. Wherever there is a change, we try to see that we look at our plan. Like right now, they are telling us we have now a new strain coming from South Africa. We are now reviewing our mitigation plan so that we can actually implement it, because we don't know the situation. The children may not go back to school. What can we do differently? Can we do homeschooling? So we are now into that direction. The other one that we've managed to do to adapt to the situation is the referral pathways. In each of our locations, the 4 of them, we have medical health officers that are provided by the Ministry of Health, with whom we relate to and work with, and also work with the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development through the probational and welfare officers. These are social workers that are supporting us to deal with the stress issues, but also to find out how we can support children better through a systemized manner and systemic manner, so to prevent abuse. So they come in, they share, they talk to the children, and this has really been helpful. The other one we continuously do as SOS through the impact is awareness creation. This is not only through the meetings and talk shows, but also having what we call children's parliament, so that they air out what they are doing. And also to make sure that these children are part and parcel of the decisions we are making during this time of the pandemic. As you see in one of the pictures, we have the children on one of the big televisions, that is Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, where they were hosted and engaging the leadership, which is key for us. And we have some of, when they are youth, they are still children in SOS, giving talks and sharing what they're doing through this time. Yeah, and still, one of the key things that we've done through as the impact of COVID, the things that I shared, the intermediate, the prolonged, one of the key things that we realize is keeping the children safe. And for us as SOS is one of our core business. And we've made safeguarding everyone's business, and we have zero tolerance to safeguarding. And one of the things that we've been able to do because of the impact of COVID is the ability of the children and the caregivers to identify these cases and to report them, and at the same time get persons of trust so that they can follow up and be able to support them. The other one that we've been able to see because of COVID is the impact 95% increase in case management and response. Even if it's one case, would like to see that the case is concluded, and basically looking at the cases of abuse, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and inappropriate behavior, because it's key for us. And then one other thing that we've been able to see, we have had to put up functional professional counseling and psychosocial support, but in all the areas that we operate in, as I earlier shared, because it's key. Right now, the mental has been attacked by COVID, which is key. If you lose your mental strength, your mental health during COVID, as children, it's very difficult for you. And functional child safeguarding and protection committees that are cutting across to support these children, so that together we can be able to provide the children of Uganda, not only those within SOS, but within the communities, a better future. And the key to that has been Male Engage. Male Engage is for both boys and the men, where the men are now partners in supporting child care, not only because of COVID, but it became evident more during this pandemic, where the men, because originally they were absent, now they are here and they are supporting us to deal with that. That's to show you the kind of support, the impact of COVID we had. The government partners coming in to support us, which boosted our care of the children within the locations, but also outside our work. And then the other things that we're able to do, the safety measures, we had to restrict movements to ensure that the people don't fall sick. We had also to continuously provide, we had to invest. And one of the key things was the love, time, food, clothing, and shelter. This within the location, but also within the communities to ensure that the families can provide. That one I earlier talked about it in terms of child safeguarding, but also the involvement of the children in their own protection. Because that is key to us. Ability now, the children are able to be seated. It is unstable. Hello, are we still there? My internet says it's unstable, but I hope it's okay. And then one of the key things that we're able to, as I earlier said, much as we had the functional psychosocial support, we've had a trend of change of things. We had the virtual psychosocial support, what I would call therapy, where you're talking to people and trying to say, build their strength and have, we have a way of therapy in dealing with the psychology of the person. And we've also had deliberate efforts in gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is key for us because as SOS, we want to support children that have lost parental care or at the risk of losing parental care. And it has been a key focus for us under COVID, the COVID pandemic. The other one that is key we've learned is to, in terms of keeping the children safe and prevention around COVID, is keeping the children busy. When children are busy, there's unlikelihood that they would be idle. So one of the things that we did, we availed them with sports things, but also for the children were encouraged to create, to be creative and innovative, to do whatever they were supposed to do. Playing is key, and we know that play is very key in the development and growth of the children. But also the children participated in the house chores, because originally they were going to school in the morning and in the evening, and then they're not there. But right now, through SOS, through our experience, through the research through the action research that we normally do, we've been able to see that happen ably. And then we increased access to learning materials, as you saw earlier, so that the children, because they were not at school, we had to ensure that we work with the Ministry of Education to give supplies to the communities, but as well as the children within the villages. And that has been key to keep them at least attached to the learning, so that by the time the schools open up, they've not lost out. We've even created what they call community-based learning, and it has been key for us. And We've tried as much as possible to share with other childcare institutions what we are seeing in terms of the impacts of COVID and working together. If there's something nice, if you have materials, is to share, rather than saying, yes, this is SOS work, we are doing it for SOS. No, this is a child of Uganda, not only a child of SOS. So others have learned from it, and then this has been a good way to go. And through of course, with the impacts, we've been also able to see that the family-like setting is real, is realized, making it more friendly, you know, working on parenting, because one of the key things that we've realized because of the pandemic is loss of parenting. The parenting schools need to be regained. You find every day, even yesterday, parent calling, when are the schools opening? To us is a big dilemma, and we need to look into it, and it's affecting the whole country, not only SOS. Those are just pictures to show you what the children have been engaged in, some in artwork, some reading, some trying out music, some engaging with the parents to do some work. And then briefly, just to play for you that as I conclude. So briefly, members, that's what I can say about the impacts of COVID in children or on children in alternative care. And I know that there's so many children out there that are going through the similar challenges, but we also appreciate the support that we've received from our regional office and also the international office of SOS, and our funders, our donors, Austrian Development Agency, through SOS Austria, the Netherlands that are supporting us, but also the entire sponsors in the world that come to the call and support the children that have no parental care or at the risk of losing parental care. I believe together we can make a difference in the lives of the children that we support. Each one of us has to play their role to ensure that we give them hope amidst the pandemic. Thank you so much. Back to you, Holly.
Thank you, Lillian, so much. I was having a hard time turning on my video. Sometimes we have a few internet issues, so I appreciate you all hanging in there. If any of you have questions, please feel free to turn on your camera and ask, or turn off your mic and ask. Any sort of engagement, we completely welcome. So if you have any questions, we would welcome them. And again, my name's Holly Malcolm. I'm the Membership and Marketing Manager for ISBCAN. And thank you for joining us in today's Circle of Learning. And Lillian, thank you so much for sharing that information. It was great. So I'll send out the recording to all of you as well if you want to share it with others. And Lillian, do you have any last minute comments, or if there's any questions, please ask. Or type them in the chat, whatever's easiest.
Yeah. I'll ask Ronald. Ronald is on right now to say something.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Definitely, Ridan, thank you so much for the presentation. And as an organization, we are aware with issues that are affecting children in the different forms of alternative care. And what we are trying to work on is that we need to ensure that we strengthen the protection systems across board, and especially the community protection systems that can be responsive to ensure that children who are in need of care and protection receive the protection that they deserve. So we are trying to ensure that we work with existing structures of government, especially the community parasocial workers in the different countries where we are currently working, so that they are able to have certain adequate skills in areas of psychosocial support, mental health, and also case management. Because currently, if we are to ensure that children do not end up into institutions, it's rather important to strengthen the gatekeeping at that level, but also to ensure that we strengthen the components of psychosocial support and also areas of parenting, so that the community volunteers are able to engage the caregivers at a community level to provide the care that children need, but also to ensure they are well protected. And just in case of any challenges that might happen, we have a clear referral system which can help us to resolve and that are affecting our children. So definitely the learning has been there, especially, you know, as an organization, we need to really focus more on strengthening mental health and psychosocial support even after COVID. Because for the category of our target, you know, they always face challenges, the multiple separations, neglect, and all that. So they have kind of traumatic events in their lifetime that affect their well-beingness. And even when you provide them with a care, them being self-reliant and the contributing members of society remains a big challenge. So we felt that that has been a missed opportunity. But during COVID, we've learned a lot, and we are setting up some kind of regional training hubs on mental and psychosocial support, but also trying to look at how we can get the expertise. I think that is something which is missing, or which is not so strong in our countries in the South, and we need to look at how best we can strengthen that aspect of mental health and psychosocial support. Thank you so much, Rian, and over to you, colleagues.
Thank you. Lillian, I have a couple questions for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, one is, it says, I am curious to know if there are any observations regarding the activities which occupy children the most during lockdown constructively.
Thank you so much. I must say before I start, constructiveness. One of the key things, you know, to be constructive is relative, and to a child's point of view may be totally different from an adult. But one of the things that we've been able to see, especially if I take by age group, 0 to 3, if they play a lot, to us, they're developing their mental strength. So they're actively being in a constructive, they're doing a constructive activity. However, if we move to the other adults, maybe the teenagers, one of the key things that you'd find is the house skills, as I earlier mentioned, but also the skilling. Many of them started to get involved in things like tailoring, which they had never done before, but tailoring not just for themselves, but for sale. When there was need of masks, there's masks production from some of these children, and these were used. And that we can say we observed, and we're happy to see them do some of the things. There's a lot of farming done, because remember, as I said, during lockdown, getting food was a challenge. But then Uganda, we are lucky, we're endowed by weather. Whatever you plant grows throughout the year. So during that period, the children engage into farming, backyard farming, but also I would look at poultry farming. Some of them started in that, and they created quality time around the activities that they were doing. And one of the key observations we made, they spent more time. You'd find that if they have 12 hours, some of them didn't even want to eat. They wanted to see their animals grow. You know, like you could imagine an animal thinking that an animal would grow within one day, but actually it takes longer. And they were able to either get to do some work around that. So it's true, yes, we did observations, and we are still taking note of what they're doing so that we see whether they are keeping into that or they are losing it when the schools start. So we would love to see that happening more. Some of them started small businesses. As I said, people took advantages. Of course, wouldn't say that it's businesses for young people is different. We're not saying big business where you are saying it's child labor, but things that they can do within themselves and they're able to support that.
Thank you for that. And then another question, are street children that are found wandering brought to the villages?
Not necessarily, because our criteria of admission is that child who has lost parental care or the risk of losing parental care. We have a criteria of admission or a procedure for admission. So you may find that street children may not necessarily end up, because most of the street children are known to have biological parents. So they are referred to the probation officer for guidance, or referred to what we call the reception center for tracing the parent, because those that end up in the villages are those without known parents. Okay. So our role in that line is to link them up or refer them to the right option of care.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one more question. Are the children who age out of the program given any other support?
Thank you for that. And I'll also ask Ronald to come in. Yes, those who age out, we don't have like aging, because if you're looking at the family life care, one of the key things, much as we have, you age out, care, you age out of care, which is normally 24, but we treat it as a case by case. Like in any home, there are children who are children at the age of 40. Much as by law or by the work that you do, they're not supposed to have care, but they are exceptional cases. So we continue supporting them because they're still our children. So when they come back, and this was very key for us during COVID, where the youth had to be supported, because some of them were engaged in informal trade. They were doing some small businesses, and somehow the businesses collapsed. So they came back home. So we have that. And one of the key things we are now putting because of COVID is emergency support for them. And then some of the children have what we call money gifts, like any home. So they are given that support. They come up with proposals to enable them support. But then the other one is the social support. When you are growing up, you may want to get married, so you need support to be able to help you to get to that level, because SOS is your home. You don't have any other home, because SOS is like your family. So whatever happens to you, there's that support that is needed. We are the grandparent. We are, everything that goes with it. Yeah.
Thank you, Vivian. Maybe in terms of adding on, I will look at it from the bigger perspective. We are, as an organization, we all know the challenges that children in alternative care face in all the various forms of care, let it be institution, family care, kinship, and foster families. The beauty with family care, or what we know about it, is that we don't have the age out, like we don't age out children at the age of 18 and they get into independent living. We all know that at that age, the children are not yet self-reliant, and they have not yet completed school, maybe university and college, and some of them have not found their jobs yet. As she said, it's a case by case, but most times aging out of family care is up to the age of 24. That's when they get into independent living, and then maybe they've been able to find a job, but also they've completed school, and then they can start trying to find opportunities for their life. But also moving forward, we are trying to look at how best we can improve the quality of care for children, and we prepare them into independent living. In terms of support, we want to ensure that they are linked to the existing social protection safety nets in the communities, both the formal protection safety nets and also both formal and informal protection safety nets. Because as an organization, we cannot be able to support or give other support to these children who are out of care. But if we can try to look at the existing opportunities and then try to look at the gaps and the policy gaps, or the issues that are affecting them or that are limiting them to access those existing social protection safety nets. Some of the things which we have been able to identify is the fact that children who are not registered birth registration hinders them to access this kind of opportunities, and then even the kind of support which is provided to them might be challenged. Where we have countries that have got health insurance, we ensure that these students are linked to health insurance schemes so that they are able to have access to health in their countries, and then also cash transfers if possible, especially for those families that have got caregivers. And then we are also looking at how best we can look at employability, and then also to try to work out on the existing policies and frameworks with the African Union to do a lot of advocacy, and also to look at the country guide policies and strategies that are in place that can benefit caregivers. But also the question which is now coming through, when do you leave care? Because most of the children we have, as we discuss these issues of alternative care, are in kinship families. And most times children in kinship families don't leave their families. They stay there up the age of 30, maybe till you get married, and some people stay in there. But we all know the challenges they face are similar to those children, are almost the same, like those who have grown up in institution. For instance, they are also having very weak social networks because of their background, poverty. They are struggling with school fees. They don't have opportunities like any other child, and also unemployment is occurring to them. And then also their survival in terms of having the social needs is a big challenge. So it's a big debate around to understand and contextualize what we mean by out of care and out of care support. And we have a big program which is getting on board. We're spanning from SOS Denmark to Danida, which we are going to try to understand those issues in the 7 countries of the East African region. Thank you, and over to you, colleagues.
Thank you. And a couple more questions. Let's see. In this, I'm going to read the whole thing. In this whole challenge of COVID-19, I like to relate to the saying that the pandemic is being equated to the bear in the wood. I want to know if the old policies shall still apply in this whole challenge. If not, when do we start seeing the policy crafters start adjusting to the new norms of engaging with the vulnerable child? New compliant policies coming into play. Otherwise, I'm worried the bear in the wood might run ahead of us and it will be game up.
Could you ask that again, Holly? Could you just
It's
ask it again?
Yes,
it was a kind of too long, so it's kind
yeah,
of.
it's in the chat too. I want
Okay.
to know if the old policy shall still apply in this whole challenge. If not, when do we start seeing the policy crafters start adjusting to the new norms of engaging with the vulnerable child? New compliant policies coming into play.
Okay. One of the key things that we notice, of course, policies have to fit in with the situation that we have. Right now, we are looking at the SOPs that fit in with what is happening. And of course, we have to adjust. And if it's really like there is need to amend or to change a policy with proper justification, with a lot of evidence, like we are seeing today in Uganda, one of the key things that I'm saying, school may change. So is it relevant for us to see a policy change or no? Yes and no, depending on the situation. So the policies will change to fit the situation because that's what policies are. And there's a very clear direction related to this. I just saw something in the chat from Didas saying the policies in place have more often been modified by the state or government through practice direction, such as laws and the SOPs. I use the SOPs because that was quickly related. So we needed that. It was not there before. So the government had to quickly put in something to fit within the situation that we're facing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then another question, are street children who are found by police or others brought to your homes?
Thank you for that. As I earlier mentioned, yes, sometimes they do, but there's a clear procedure by government that the children are received by either the police. Okay, they are received by the police, but we are called. And for SOS to take up such a child, as I earlier said, we may not be the best suited place to look after these children, because majority of the street children are known to have parents. So would love as much as possible to trace these parents so that they can take back their children, because it's in the best interest for a child to grow up in a family setting. So normally that's for street children here.
I think I can also add that, for instance, in Rwanda, we had a lot of opportunities in terms of care reform, where we've seen quite a number of institutions being closed down. But also, as the number of institutions were closed, fortunately, SOS is still operational in Rwanda. But also, we've seen quite a number of children getting onto the streets. And some of the factors which are contributing is teenage pregnancy, and they're also trying to do some studies. So basically, we are currently receiving children from the streets in Rwanda specifically, but it's on a case by case. But also we are in partnership with the National Rehabilitation Center, which has been an agency which has been established by the government of Rwanda that works on rehabilitation of these children, so that they use SOS as a transit form as we get into tracing and ensuring that the children are integrated. And then also the fact that we are not the best people to manage children from the street, we are also trying to look at the internal capacity, where we can be able to empower our caregivers to have the skills that they are in position to support those children who are on the street in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of social support, and as we also try to do the linkages with other partners. So what we are trying to do is that, because we are seeing that as an increasing need, and we are trying to ensure that we try to build the internal capacity which can respond to that, but also we don't only need to look at responsive measures. We also have the preventive measures, where we are working with families to avoid family separation of this kind of children. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you. And one more question. Is there a Uganda government system of data collection and referral? And are the SOS data on outcomes for these orphan children also shared into this?
Ask that again. Sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There's some interruption.
Oh, sorry. Is there a Uganda government system of data collection and referral? And are the SOS data on outcomes for these orphan children also shared into this?
Yes and no. One of the key things that we've been having what we call a management information system as a country, but mainly focusing on children, orphans and vulnerable children. That is the main one. Now, when it comes to children in alternative care, we have different systems, and the country right now is having another system that is happening, that is taking place, where children, especially those in residential care, that is children's homes, are being registered. However, right now, through different organizations, through UNICEF, USAID, Catholic Relief Services, SOS, and other organizations, we are saying right now, can we have a child protection system that captures all the children of Uganda, relating to recently, because we have now a national child policy. Can we be able to track the children so that we have an information management system for child protection? Reason being, we need all information about the children, but also relating it to other indicators like health, because already health has a health management system. So can the system be one, and can we be able to track? And this is what they are calling a child protection system, but a management system that looks at the child in totality. So we hope that will take place very soon. We are still trying to build it, looking at the data, looking at the variables so that we can capture.
Great, thank you so much. I think if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll conclude this. But Lillian, Ronald, thank you so much for your time. What a great program. Thank you for all the work you're doing. I will share the recording on the website and also send out an email. We were on Facebook Live as well, so I was getting some of the questions from there. If you have any further questions, Lillian, can I send your email in case there are further questions?
Yes, please do so, Holly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And again, the recordings will be on the ISPCAN website. It's www.ispacan.org. And I'll send Lillian, if you want to post the recording on your website, that's great as well. And thank you again. We appreciate you being here. Have a good evening, good day, wherever you may be. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Holly, for hosting me and for the many participants that we've had. Together, we'll make a difference in the children that we support. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.